Hi, Hilda. Welcome back to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Thank you for having me on, Whitney. I feel so honored.
It is such a treat for me to connect with you today because you're one of my favorite people to learn from and learn with. And I've been listening to you and following you, and so has my friends and family. For over 6 years now, whether it's through your Wise Traditions podcast that you do for the Weston Price Foundation or just your own personal work that you do on your Instagram and your YouTube channel, because everything is synergistic with what you do. And it's all supportive and just making you a more informed person to make better decisions for your physical, emotional, and mental health.
And I'm so happy to be on here because the social media, the podcast, the YouTube channel really some of it only scratches the surface. There's so much more I want to share that I've learned. And so I hope we get a chance to dive deep today.
Okay, perfect. So you were on the podcast probably 3.5 years ago, and we really focused on the lessons that you've learned from traditional wisdom. So really diving deep into whether it's your travels or your work with the Weston Price Foundation, those traditional food foundations, which create, the baseline for health, just better understanding the simple whole foods that we all should be having in our body. What I wanted to talk about today is, since the last time we connected, you've gone to lots of biohacking conferences, you've traveled around to learn about other indigenous cultures, you've been very busy and proactive with Polyface Farms. So I want to learn more about, what are some of the connections that you've made in where biohacking's going versus traditional wisdom. What have you picked up that seems to be working well together?
That's a great question. So yes, I got to hang out with Dave Asprey. I did an event with him this past April, and then he had his big biohacking conference. And I think next year in 2026, he's going to do a conference called Beyond Biohacking. Where am I going with this, Whitney? The point is biohacking is catching up to traditional wisdom.
Yes.
Biohacking is circling back around. What was the point? Dave Asprey even calls himself the father of biohacking. I think he coined the phrase, the idea being, let's manipulate our environment, external and internal, to achieve a level of health that we can't in our modern world with all the toxicity. And he's coming back around to things like meditation, focus, forgiveness. I literally got to interview him recently for the Wise Traditions podcast. We haven't put that one out yet, but I was like, wait, what's happening? This is the man who I thought of as the king of gadgets. If you go to his conference, it's hyperbaric oxygen chambers and little, light strobe lights that manipulate your brain, the brain tap stuff, and Patrick Porter. It's all great. Don't get me wrong. Until you realize, oh, every single one of these gadgets is trying to replicate something that our ancestors were able to tap into naturally. So are biohacking and ancestral wisdom opposed to one another? No, actually, I think they're more aligned than ever, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm also thankful for the chance to talk about what's made a difference for me and why I would rather go the natural route than to use all of these little apps and hacks.
That's how I feel too. I'm not somebody that wears a watch or a ring to let me know if I sleep well. I naturally know if I slept well or not. And so if I don't sleep well, that tells me I need to change my evening routine leading up to bed so I can sleep better. I don't need an app for that. So that's what makes me happy is when people start to figure out that you can naturally, intuitively kind of tune in to figure out the changes that you need to make in your life.
Yes, and I'm just laughing because I tried the Oura ring. What happened was I got caught up in these circles, which I love. All my friends who are maybe, got more of a left brain, psychoanalytical and rational mind. And they're like, this little ring, I did the Oura ring, gives me all this data on my sleep and my heart rate variability. And I was like, well, let me try it out. And it was kind of fun because I felt like wearing it. I felt like I was part of a secret club, all the people who were kind of in the know. But then I realized exactly what you said, Whitney, that I can wake up and easily know, am I feeling refreshed? Am I lingering longer in bed because I don't feel like I got enough rest? Was I tossing and turning at night? I don't need an app to tell me that. And not only that, the danger with some of these trackers is they are not just getting your data and feeding it back to you. They're getting your data, some of them, I won't say all of them, but some of these companies are getting your data and they're mining it because data is gold in today's economy. What I mean by that is this: the more information big tech can get on who we are, what our habits are, the more they have a hold on us and they can almost direct where we want to go. We think, oh, isn't it nice that Instagram knows my algorithmic patterns and will feed me more of the information I want? Well, yes and no. The danger is it's going to feed you stuff that you might be susceptible to, and then their point is to get more of your purchases, to get more of your attention so that they can sell you things. So I don't want to be manipulated. That's why I did break up with my Oura Ring. It was hard because I did like the little reward system, it has this little intrinsic reward of saying, oh, you slept well, you get a crown, and that's part of the issue with all of these gadgets. It's not, how can I put it? It's not harmless. It is actually manipulating us with dopamine hits of different kinds that make real life less enticing and attractive, and the digital life more attractive and enticing. And I will say this also: the word entertainment, you might think, oh, I'm just mindlessly scrolling. It's holding on to you, and that's keeping you from your deeper purpose. And if I could, I'll just segue real quick to my most recent trip was to Colombia, South America in June of this year. I went down there for the solstice and got to connect with some indigenous people, the Arhuaco, the Wiwa, and the Koji people, who are from the mountains in Colombia, South America. And for a long time, Whitney, they saw themselves as the wisdom keepers. And they purposely isolated themselves from modern man because they were like, we're the big brother. We're not going to get caught up. This is my little way of framing it, but we're not going to get caught up in what the younger brother is doing, though we think you're losing your way. We're the wise ones. We're going to help the planet with our intentions and our thinking on purpose. But then they realized that the younger brother, we modern people, were getting so lost. They're like, we better literally come down off of our mountaintop and try to share with you some of the wisdom. And so when I got to be with these people, I felt so privileged. It was really a hand-picked group of about 15 with us, 15 people that got to be with this Jaguar Siembra group. The long and the short of it is this: there are people on this planet very tapped into ancient wisdom and their purpose on the planet. And part of it is what I mentioned a moment ago, thinking on purpose. What happens to us, Whitney, is that we're like pinballs, like people in video games. And I don't play them, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but there's lots of bouncing around, and I can hardly write an email without getting a ping on my phone and getting distracted. And so what we're doing is we're becoming puppets on a string, jerked about by notifications and enticing and entertaining images. And what we need to do is what our older brothers of the Koji tribe called us to, which is to think on purpose. So one of my simple start of the day hacks, and now I'll let you get a word in edgewise, but I'll just say one of my simple things is to start the day on my terms. I'm not going to be a puppet following somebody else's string and whoever pinged me in the morning or whatever notification I got on a social media platform. No, I get up and I get the sun in my eyes before I get on my screens. And I might have said this the last time you had me on, but I see this as more important than ever because this way I can actually think. Otherwise, I'm being dragged around and led places that don't do me any good. In some ways, I think we should be very wary of the very technology you and I are using right now and realize it can be used judiciously, but we don't want it to use us. And we can get sucked into a morass where we're no longer thinking for ourselves. And the most important work is the work that these indigenous people in Colombia are doing, and that is to think with intention. And they are careful to think positive thoughts. They dismiss things that are negative. They wipe them away. They realize that their intention and their purposeful thoughts are like prayers of the direction we want the world to go in. And I think it's more important than ever for us to start the day and to end our day off screen.
I really needed to hear that. So the oddest thing happened this morning. I get up early. I'm a high performer. My whole day is very scheduled because I I purposely want to do and create a lot of things in this world. And I woke up so dizzy, like so dizzy, I couldn't get out of bed. So I had to change the alarm. I was well aware of what time I needed to get on this podcast. And I just decided, I also have to chef today. And I just thought I'm going to have to push back the execution of what I'm cooking for my clients so I can better show up for you, so I can better show up for my client. And I went back to bed. And it makes me feel like I'm the ping pong, that I've spent too many weeks being dragged around and controlled by every email, every voicemail, every DM, every text message. And that's why I'm feeling a little out of sorts because this is so unlike me. And when I feel best, like the Aura ring doesn't need to tell me, is when I can turn off my technology at 8 o'clock and take time to slow my body down. Go upstairs and stretch, put my legs up the wall to calm my nervous system, meditate, read, and then I get a good night's sleep. And I haven't been doing that for weeks. I've been working on the laptop up until I'm just like, okay, it's 10:30. I got to shut it off and go to bed. And I turn off the Wi-Fi. I open the windows. I have some like natural little holistic things that I do. But I've been it's I haven't created that window for sleep. And so when you don't create that window to prepare your body for sleep, you get up the next day and it's as if the last day hasn't ended. And you're
Wow.
just, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. And it's dizzying, it's discombobulating. And just think
Yes.
you as a holistic person, a wonderful, nutritious chef, and a podcaster, if this happens to you, I mean, it happens to me, it happens to a lot of us. It's probably not unusual for some of the listeners, right? The same thing. So it's like, what can we do except to recalibrate? Your body was definitely sending you a signal this morning, right? That kind of dizzy feeling is naturally what happens when you're being pulled and ping ponged in every direction. So
Yeah.
to reestablish that habit is critical. So, and what I do, and you probably do this too, Whitney. So I hope I'm not preaching to the choir, but I like to stack my hacks. What do I mean by that? Is I get out in the morning first thing to get the sunlight in my eyes. That early morning spectrum of light is particularly healing and helping us sync with our circadian rhythm, and it's good for our sleep and our hormonal function, all the things. So that's like a non-negotiable for me. Even today in the rain, I was out there. But not only am I out there getting that light information, but I'm praying. I'm thinking positive thoughts, intention for the day. I'm lifting up my friends and family. I'm so there I've got the spiritual and the physical, and then I've got the movement piece. So I don't need a vibration plate, although I think those are kind of cool to be honest. But I'm like, I can vibrate on my own. I can move on my own. I just think we're spending all of our time and all of our money chasing health through gadgets, looking for that shortcut when the ancestral wisdom invites us to approach it in a way that costs less money and can be time effective too. It's just a matter of being still enough to remember it.
Yeah. And it's less physical clutter as well. And, shamans and spiritual masters will always tell you if there's physical clutter in your space, there's mental clutter. So there has been a lot of gadgets that have come out over the past few years that I've really wanted to get. What stops me is I can't handle more stuff in my space.
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. And I'm chuckling again because I was at a conference recently and someone was selling something so simple. I actually really did like it. It was some kind of like posture corrector, and it was like you put a band around your knee and strap it around your waist, and it felt like such a relief, like, okay, I'm sitting in the right position. But I thought, if I buy this, like, what are the chances I'm actually going to strap it on when I get on a plane or pack it in my luggage or use it at home? And I thought it's very slim. So I think you're being really judicious. And what we're doing in this conversation is really inviting people to trust their intuition more, to slow down, to listen to what the body needs and respond in kind. We don't need all the latest and greatest. And that's why I sometimes even say, Sleep beats any green smoothie hands down as a detox protocol. But again, we overlook it because of its simplicity. Instead, we see someone on Instagram saying, "Hey, this is great for detoxing." And we're like, "Okay, give me the colon cleanse or the liver flush." Like they sound very dramatic, but what if something you do every night could help you even avoid needing those big dramatic moves?
Yeah, these are all great reminders. And also, like, we're living through a very interesting year. So we're all wrestling with ourselves and our truth and trusting ourselves, knowing what's right for ourselves, being overwhelmed with information, wondering what our neighbor's doing over there. So that's why I love having these discussions, just to remind people that they aren't alone right now. Everything's in flux.
Totally. And I know, like you said, this has been a very strange year with, the whole Charlie Kirk assassination and all the things. And I, too, true confessions, have gotten sucked into like, did he really die? I mean, there's all these theories out there. And that's part of the morass I was talking about earlier, Whitney. Like, even me, like, and when I say even me, I mean just a very health conscious individual. I've learned from experts and people I've traveled around the world to connect with. Like, I have so much that I have going for me. I can get pulled into these things that I realize it's sucking me down
Yeah.
from being my best self. What difference does it make to me if Brigitte Macron is a man? Like, I don't. Um, like it doesn't make any difference in my world, right where I am with my family, with my neighbors, with my mission. So
Yes.
is it curious? Yes. Does my mind, want to answer that puzzle? Yes. And that's what the algorithm knows. But if in my best self, when I show up with the right bookends to my day, I've talked about how I start my day and I'll explain how I end it in a bit. But when I have that, that grounds me so that when I encounter those things, I'm like, you know what? I don't need that right now. And I can set that aside and be focused. I was yesterday at an event. It was about screens and sickness and how the screens are affecting our children. And the fellow, I think it was the author of The Anxious Generation, Dr. Haidt, was talking about how he saw this tombstone in a cemetery and it was from the Civil War. And some tree grew up around it and it literally just kind of grew around this obstacle. And he said, our children's brains now, even our teens' brains from when the phone has been around, have grown up around this thing. So I don't know when you were born, but for all of us, it is shaping and changing the way we interact with reality. And some of the changes are not good because anxiety is up, depression is up, obesity is up. A lot of things are up while our real health factors are going down.
Yeah.
And it's really, really concerning. So I bring this up because we're all interruptible now. And the most beautiful words we might want to hear in 2025 are, let me put my phone down. Like that's the best thing you can say to a loved one. If they're trying to talk to you, boom, put that thing away. Like it's just, we need these constant reminders. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because we want to show up in this world as our most grounded, our most prayed up, meditated, healthy, sunbathed self to make a difference on this planet. But our tombstone shouldn't say, she liked this person's post 125 times. Like, who cares? That doesn't really matter, right? So we need to get back more into real life and less into the virtual and digital.
Really like the lesson that you shared today of controlling our own thoughts and not allowing um, outside noise to control them. Like that's been really powerful for me for what you said today. So I'd like to know, you have your morning routine to set your foundation for the day. What are the little things that you trickle in throughout your day that makes you feel good, that keeps you focused on what you have to execute for the day, that provides you the energy that you need? What are the little holistic things that you do during the day to move you through and bring you, also some joy?
Yes. So the thing that I find the most draining, the days I'm the most, I should say, the least holistic Hilda of all, are the days when I'm only on my device all day. And sometimes as a podcaster, that happens. I'll have, but I'll just be doing busy work. I won't be connecting. Even this feels better to me than the day where I'm just being quote unquote productive. So I feel like the things that bring me the most joy during the day are taking sun breaks, getting out in nature, but also real life connecting times. So here's an example. After being inside, ironically, during the screen and sickness event that I was at, I got together with my daughter and I could tell she was kind of down. So I was like, let me make you some food. I went out, I bought some groceries at a nearby organic store, and I made her dinner. I had in my mind, Whitney, other things that I knew I wanted to get done, the productive side of me. And but in my heart, I knew I had to do what was most important. And not only did I bring her joy, but I brought myself joy because I put people over productivity. So I think that's really, really helpful. And we also do need frequent connections with nature because there's something about looking at the horizon, looking at trees, seeing the sun or the rain, as the case was today, that sends a signal to my nervous system to get me back in that parasympathetic mode of rest and digest. What happens is when we're on our devices or thinking, I need to execute, 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 and I can relate to all those people because I'm a type A myself, likely. When we're in that mode, it's a lot of cortisol racing through our system, and we find ourselves breathing shallowly. Exactly. And are we getting things done? Yes, but we're pushing through walls that maybe we're not meant to be pushed through. Whereas I can still do a few things and get outside, and then it reminds me to catch my breath. I'm part of a bigger world. It grounds me literally and brings me back to my senses. That's what I actually said shortly after the Charlie Kirk incident, which hit me hard because I'd been a part of some of the young women's leadership summits and stuff that were TPUSA tangents and initiatives, I would say, that I thought were beautiful and lovely. But I was hit pretty hard, and I went to a couple of farms within a matter of weeks of that incident with Charlie happening. And I was like, oh, yeah, let's come to our senses in more ways than one. Find things that you can touch and see and smell and experience because that's real life. A lot of the digital stuff will come and go, but what really feeds the spirit is what feeds the senses and the soul.
Overall, the energy that's coming through social media and the tech is that's not a feel good energy. Like if you get on shortly, you might start to find some inspiration and then it takes you another direction. And it isn't until you get offline and you get back in nature that you get a better perspective of life. And what I always tell myself when I start to get lost in looking at a website, being on social media, looking at a news channel online, the line that I tell myself is, this doesn't serve me. Like, there's nothing here that serves me. Like, there's nothing here that's going to move me forward in life. So I have to remind myself that, and then I can log off and focus again on what's going to move me forward in life because it's not that news.
That makes me so happy because did you know that the Weston A. Price Foundation says their motto with technology is technology as servant? It needs to serve us, not
Yes.
the other way around. And what happens is we become kind of enslaved as we're entertained, and it's using us instead of the other way around. Tech has its place. We might learn a little something about a marketing strategy or how to up our game with a podcast or even something inspirational about how to relate to our kids more. But then it has this diminishing returns feature that's very much like alcohol. At first you think, oh, this loosens me up and I can be more social, but later it depresses you. And in the summit that I was at yesterday at the Screen and Sickness, they said it has a very addictive quality. And as adults, you and I have the ability to say, okay, to hear and know more. But teens and kids, their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. Like it's much harder for them. So I would say to all the moms listening, please be judicious about the screen use in your house. I used to tell my kids, we live life, we don't watch it because I would limit their screen time very drastically. And at the time, it was very strange. And of course, they didn't like it. But now they thank me because they have the ability to make eye contact, to put tech in its place. But if it weren't for that, I don't know where they would be. But I had that intuition telling me, and this is before, computer games and even the handheld iPhone had been developed. I was just like, I don't think this is good. I don't think this is helpful to have the kids kind of numbed out. Does it seem helpful to mama in a minute to have her kid kind of quiet? Yes, but you don't know how many times I travel and I see the kids with their headphones and the iPads and the airplane seat. There's no connection, no discussion of where we're going and what you can see outside the window. It's all virtual the whole flight through. And it breaks my mama's heart, which is one reason I'm really doing my best to get the word out to mamas about ways in which they can up their own energy and also have it be a trickle down effect for their kids so that they can invest in generational health. That's how I put it lately. And this is something I saw with my own eyes too in the Colombian indigenous cultures that I visited, that the older women are nurturing the younger women in beautiful, beautiful ways. And I think that is a reminder to me of my role as a grandmother now, and to be a grandmother or mother of sorts to young women who are like, I don't know how to handle these days. Like, I'm with you, mama. I'm trying to help you through because these are not easy waters to navigate.
But I'm curious if you feel this thread. I feel like often, I'm 44. If I look around at a lot of people my age in their late 30s or early 40s, they think they know better than their parents. And they seem resistant to the wisdom on how to manage their family. So you might want to provide some holistic advice, but is it even going to be received?
Oh, such a good question. That, my friend, I think is a deliberate marketing attempt that shapes our culture and society in big ways in the United States. I don't know if you know this, but for example, people used to cook with lard. And then the Crisco company realized that there was a petroleum byproduct that looked like lard and was being wasted. And they thought, what can we do with this? And they're like, oh, we can market this as the new lard. So they started saying kind of like, old fashioned or older is outdated. Let's bring in the new stuff. Yes, your grandmother or your mother cooked with lard. This is less smell, less hassle. They had their marketing ploy. And it's been so effective that it's trickled into how people see older people. Look at in the United States, we discard them. We put them into nursing homes and then they're relegated to walkers and wheelchairs. And I think it's not because their bodies are broken, but their spirits are broken. This is a controversial idea, but they have been rejected, so they become what we have done with them. Whereas in other countries, when I was in Kenya, I met this Maasai warrior elder. He was like 100 years old, but he was revered by his culture, by his tribe, and consequently was at the ready to offer advice. And this wise woman, also a moma that I met in this one culture, the Arhuaco culture, she was there to guide the young women on how to weave. They make baskets and they make purses for carrying coca leaves, actually. And this is one of their traditions. And so it can take them months to do that, but she would teach the technique and explain the colors and what they represented to the younger generation. Will people listen to me? I don't know. But I can only hope that I will be a voice calling people to remember that our elders have wisdom beyond our years, if nothing else, because they've lived longer on the planet. And before you dismiss what they have to share with you out of hand, I suggest giving them a chance and seeing if what they have to say might not have some nuggets of truth that you can apply to your own life and to your families.
My parents were the first people to start telling me in the 90s that the um why can't I think of the name now, that the global communication, that we are in a climate crisis, and that we need to we can get into that later, but they were the first ones to tell me that it was a scam, that there was an agenda, that when this is what they would always say, when you live long enough, you see you see the environmental cycles. When you live long enough in one location, you see all the weather patterns. And so what they're doing is, because this was in the 90s, my parents said this, because people are starting to move for work, move for business, move for college, move for life. They're living in places and we're being able to move around better and faster than we've ever been able to before. People are no longer living in the places where they grew up. And there's so many people in these places that they've never lived before for such short periods of time. They're not aware of the weather cycles for that area. And weather cycles are long, they aren't short. So the news is able to convince people, oh yeah, this is a drought. There is no water, it's not going to rain, and it's because of you and your life choices, right? And so you
Yeah.
need to stop driving a car, you need to stop doing this, that, and the other, because you are the problem. Instead of but people believe it, because they don't know what the climate cycles are in the region they live in because they aren't from there.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're
It's
so
been
right. They
very,
don't
it's
the
been
way.
very fascinating. And so
Yes.
I've been joking a lot with my parents recently. It's been frustrating, but all the things that they told me when I was in high school in the 90s, I now seen it, right? I'm seeing the things that they told me about how the government runs in my little hometown of Laguna Beach. I now see all the corruption. I now see all the weather patterns. I now can see through everything people are trying to sell to us through our local news and online. That's not true. That's an agenda. Um, it's very interesting, but I wouldn't have been able to learn this if I didn't have parents that chose to live in one place, see the cycles, and share it.
Wow, so interesting. And I think to your point about moving away, I think that's another factor in why we disregard what the older generation has to tell us because once we go away to college and then we get a job and then we get married, we often stay apart from our nuclear family. And so we have less influence. They have less influence over us. But the TV, the screens, all the things telling us to think, more modern ways and to accept the programming is with us all the time. So it's a challenge to listen. I'm so glad you listened to your parents, but it's not easy. And there is so much wisdom to tap into, but I think unfortunately we're opting for the modern instead of the ancient and the wise. So that's a word of caution for all of us.
Yeah, and it's really important, I think, wherever people are living, that they start to learn about where they're living. Like, start to learn about the history of the land that you're living on. Start to ask people who are locals about the weather cycles, what's in season, what they should be eating, what they need to try. Um, it's really important to learn about where you're living. Um,
Mhm.
you can't just show up and continue your patterns from wherever you're from. You need to move into the culture of the community that you chose to move in, but you need to understand where that culture comes from. It's really important, I think, to learn the history of where you're living. Um, and I think that affects your health.
Absolutely. And I know you and I have discussed before, it might have been on the Wise Traditions podcast, the importance of eating locally. Of
Mhm.
course, I have talked with Jack Cruz on different occasions, and he emphasizes that in terms of light information, is how he frames it. He says,
Love
you
that.
know, the light information of the food we eat needs to be a biological match with the light information of where we are. So if I'm north of the equator and I'm eating pineapples all the time, like that's a biological mismatch or a disconnect. So that's not to say I can't have pineapple now and then, but I need to work to make the crux of my diet more local because that also informs my body about where I'm at and gets me in tune with my surroundings. So, for more than one reason, we should engage with our local surroundings for sure.
And if people are wondering how they can apply it, obviously fruit's one of the easiest things that you can buy at a farmer's market instead of the grocery store. But another thing to consider is your salad greens. So what's considered the salad bowl of the United States is Monterey County. Most of the salad comes from Monterey County, California, up in Northern California. But if you don't live in Northern California, your greens probably shouldn't be coming from there, especially if you're in Phoenix, Arizona. So finding just, just making sure you have, let's say, 5 things on your plate or in your fridge that's local that you always keep in your house, whether I would say eggs, fruit, a few veggies, maybe if you can find a protein source beyond the eggs, can be really helpful in just sinking you to where you live.
Oh, 100%. And this is one reason, just a side note, and a little plug, but it doesn't mean anything to me if people follow this or not. But Farm Match, I always call it like Tinder for farms, but it's this wonderful organization that my friend Max Kane started. And what you do is you plug in the food you're interested in, and the website or application will show you what farms deliver or have drop offs or are part of a farmer's market near you. So if you're like, oh, I really want Brussels sprouts, or I'm interested in ferments. Some farmers will go ahead and prepare those for you so you can find out which farm matches up with you. I love it so much. So I get my milk, my meat, my eggs from local farms here out on the East Coast, and it's phenomenal. So I really, really highly recommend Farm Match.
Thank you. That's You've mentioned that one to me before, and I really need to use that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And if you go to my website, holistichilda.com, I think you get a discount on your first order. But this is not to plug that really, except to say there are resources out there. I will also say on the westonaprice.org website is a tab that says find food and local chapters. And that sounds really fancy, but it just means you can scan the nation and the world to find individuals whose only responsibility as a chapter leader is to give you a list of food resources nearby.
That's
So the
amazing.
foundation is big on finding your farmer, shaking the hand that feeds you, and all these good things. And so you can find someone who can give you a list of places, farmers markets, and other farms that are reliable, that are doing the regenerative ag and the sustainable practices that you would approve of. So lots of resources are out there.
And then you get to meet like-minded people. And that's what we all want anyway.
100%. And like I said, people are nourishment too. But I do want to finish a thought from earlier before you get to some more questions. And I know we have to wrap up soon as well. But I want to say this. You asked me what brings me joy during the
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
I would say there are ups and downs in every day, right? But part of it is the bookending effect. So I said I start my day with sunrise before screenrise. I like to say, getting outside, taking a walk, praying, and all those things. And then when I put my head on the pillow, I make sure to turn off my device like an hour before bed and I'm just reading. And then I review my day with gratitude. Yeah, there were hard things for sure, but I'm trying to bookend my day because that uplifted spirit thing will help me sleep better. And it helps me, even as some people call it the law of attraction, it helps me be on the lookout for more positive things. Even every challenge, as they say, is an opportunity. Like we think, oh man, it sucked that I got that email or this one thing didn't go my way. So here's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself. Why did that frustrate me so much? And to pivot. Like it can be an obstacle, but you can learn how to strengthen your spirit as you go around it, above it, or whatever you need to do through it to come out, as I was saying earlier, as your best self in the world.
Any other nighttime rituals or routines or suggestions you've learned from the different Indigenous people that you've met or from Dave Asprey and the biohacking community?
Well, like I said, biohacking is catching up to ancient wisdom. They are big on light therapy and light inputs. So I do, after the sun goes down, I wear blue blockers at night. So I avoid the blue light that interferes with my melatonin production and release. But also, I have a sauna because sometimes, especially in the winter months, I don't feel like I'm getting as much of the near or far infrared light as my body would like. I'm Latina, so I actually need more of that light information maybe than some, especially because I live now in northern climes, whereas my dad's from Cuba, my mom's from Mexico. So I have to make up for that. So I
Hmm.
sometimes also, since you asked, and I haven't told many people this, but I do sometimes before bed, I get on a PEMF mat,
That's
which has the warmth and some light therapy with some crystals in it. I use the higher dose mat. It's just a little something to help me wind down. And it's interesting, just to let you know that science doesn't have all the answers. I have a friend who has a meter. I do too, actually, but he used it on some different mats and things. And he's like, oh, Hilda, that should be called like higher dose of EMFs. Don't tell my friend Lauren. But anyway, like it's a lot of EMFs. But personally, I enjoy getting on that mat before bed.
yeah.
So I am cognizant of the fact that maybe it does have more electromagnetic fields than I would like. But to me, the benefit outweighs the risk. And so here's where I want to invite people to the ancient practice of listening to their own intuition. Like I could just take my friend's rational, scientific, materialistic meter readings and be like, okay, I'm never doing that again. Or I could say, hey, I really like that. And I don't think it's bad for me. And my body is asking, especially in the winter months, actually, to get on that little mat before bed. And then I'll get into my cold sheets, and I'll sleep with a window the window open and all the things. I do think cooler temps are better when you're sleeping, but it makes me feel kind of cozy before bed. So I think it's really important for us not to take, especially as we've been discussing, all of this information online and even all of the biohacking information. We need to put it through the lens of our own intuition and ancient wisdom. So my ancestors likely at night would get in front of a fire before bed, get a little cozy with the family. And so we have a fireplace, but I don't think we've cleaned it lately. So it's probably full of soot and stuff. So I'm not doing that at night, but I can do my PMF mat. But I do think also, just to reemphasize, maybe it's just because I was with the Arhuaco and Koji people, but I think our thoughts are much more important than I might have even realized from the last time you had me on the show. I think the way we frame our day, and even as you heard me say, reframe circumstances, really matters for our health, because our nervous system informs our regulatory pathways and our immune system, as some people call it. It informs how our body will defend itself against attacks to our health. And a lot of them start with the attacks to our psyche. So when people say, oh my gosh, that person makes me sick, or, my stomach is tied up in knots because I have a meeting with my supervisor, these are phrases that actually are related to our health. So the invader can come in spiritual and emotional and mental ways. And so what we need to do is to think on purpose, as my Colombian indigenous people would say. And so that's why I'm very careful about what I let in. Everything we consume online, by the way, is part of our diet. So a call to the mamas again, like, pay attention to what you're watching and to what you allow your kids to take in on those screens, because it directs their thinking and could shape them for the rest of their life.
I would love to know, since we've last connected, more and more people are open-minded about eating real whole foods, eating seasonally. They're more mindful about their protein sources. They're asking more questions than they're at restaurant. We've moved a long way, right? There's a lot more positive talk, I think. I'd love to know, have you seen a huge change in family members, friends that were more resistant and were really holding on to their processed food? Or is everyone still kind of the same, questioning whether this is real? I would just love to know, because we always have our friends that are outliers, right? That don't want to change, that want to continue to eat their fast food and get their hot dogs at Costco, but then complain to you about how they feel. Have you seen an evolution in the people around you in the past few years? And I'll go from there after that.
Okay. Absolutely. I've seen a shift. And it's not so much, how can I put it? It's not just because things are trending, though they are, right? You've got the whole MAHA movement, which is Make America Healthy Again. You've got influencers who are suddenly talking about tallow for the skin and the importance of tallow fries instead of, in seed oils. The seed oils thing. Sally Fallon Morell was talking about this 25 years ago when she wrote her book, Nourishing Traditions. She called them vegetable oils because it's what people called them at the time. But now the word is out. They're seed oils. They're ultra processed, the most processed of all processed foods. They use this extrusion process at high temperatures that denatures any possible value that could be in those seeds, whether it's the soybean or the rapeseed or what have you. So those things are a mess, and everybody knows it. And the cool thing is, though, we are the biggest influencers of all. And I don't mean you and me, Whitney, because we're doing a podcast. I mean, there's been a ripple effect with my own family that I have made by my choices. So you mentioned the friends who are buying the hot dogs at Costco and are maybe like still loving their bags of chips or whatever, who are having health problems. Eventually they're going to be like, how come your knees don't hurt? You know what I mean? Like, you are going to have almost an effect by osmosis or by process of elimination. They're like, all my friends are like me, except for Whitney over there. I'm bringing this up because last night I was having dinner, or shortly after dinner, with my husband and one of my daughters, and I looked at them and they were both wearing blue blocking glasses. And I was like, I've been doing this for over 8 years now. And it's not that I tried to pound it in them. It was this effect of one person making a choice that's different that gave them permission to make the same choice. And then I think of my niece, who was literally, she's probably like 18 or 19 now, but she was tied to her phone like 3 or 4 years ago. So much so that her mom would like hide her phone because she didn't know how to break her daughter's addiction to it, right? recently I did some post on Instagram about like how, it's not a good idea to have your phone on you. And she was like, I liked your post so much. I'm keeping my phone now somewhere else. And you might say, well, okay, she just matured. Yes. And there's a ripple effect that we have with the people around us. So I'm not saying, how can I put this? Don't like beat it over your family members' heads. I think they will see the seeds that you're planting in your own life of well being, and they are going to sprout eventually. And I can't guarantee this in every single family, but I will tell you, my husband was one of those who influenced, who was kicking and screaming at first, resisting all this stuff. And he just got back from the Wise Traditions Conference with me now. And like Bill Schindler and Sally Fallon Morell are like his heroes. I'm like, what is happening? But it is happening. And I don't think it's just because, again, of all the trends out there. It's because I've stayed the course. I'm living a certain way. And so each person, you listening right now, whoever's listening to the show, you are going to make a big impact on the people around you just by virtue of the choices you're making.
I would agree. It's been 10 years since I finished culinary school. And when I first moved back to Laguna and was staying at my parents', I went through their pantry and I pulled out everything that I didn't think served them or me. Did the same thing with their refrigerator and then would nitpick everything that they were purchasing that I felt like was a processed food. When I stopped doing that and just focused on me, everyone in my family, my friends, my little circle started to pick up my habits. When I was standing on the soapbox screaming, that didn't work. That was force. But slowly over time, they got curious with what my choices were and why. And then that gave them time to process, maybe I should consider those choices for me. And then they would go and make ultimately the right choice for them, which is the right choice, I think, really for everyone. Everyone deserves to eat real whole food that has flavor, that makes them
Mm-hmm.
feel good. And I think just showing up and being your authentic self every day, it's the best thing that you can do for the people you love. And that goes back to how you started this conversation. It's controlling your thoughts and your behavior in your day and not allowing yourself to be dragged around by other people's agenda.
100%. And I love that you learned that lesson, that force doesn't work. I think another thing that's helpful is just entering into your own joy, that people want to be a part of that. My dad is 93 years old and he is so playful. Like literally we went to an air show. It's just a random air show here in the DC area with these old propeller planes and wing walkers and stuff.
Yeah.
My dad got up on a picnic bench to stand on it so he could see better. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like he's 5 years old, but he was so enthralled with it all. And I thought we need to kind of keep that playful, curious spirit.
Yeah.
Because when we get like very rigid and forceful and almost like, violent in our passion, it's counterproductive, right? So stay playful, enter into your own joy, show up as your healthiest self, and the ripple effect will happen.
Well, where can people continue to learn from you? Where do you like to connect with people online? And then do you have any upcoming in-person events?
Thank you for asking. So, Holistic Hilda, I'm Holistic Hilda on Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel too where I feel like there's lots of good content. It's not just coming from me. I like to interview folks, snippets of conversations with amazing influencers and experts on all kinds of subjects. In terms of upcoming events, let me think. I'm going to be at Hack Your Health mid-November. That's in Tampa, Florida. I'm going to be at the Liberty Food Fest mid-December in Vermont, two very different places.
Yeah.
And then I'll be at Meatstock in May, which I think is in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and that's in May 2026. But also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention I have a course that I'm about to make one segment of it free based on the sun. Because of all the things you've asked me, Whitney, I think the sun is the most undervalued wellness tool in our toolkit. It is something that nourishes people groups that I've seen all around the world from Ethiopia to Australia, and that we just kind of don't pay attention to. As a health coach, I myself was always like just indoors, training physically and cooking meals and neglecting the time I spent in the natural light. It's very healing. So I'm going to make that section free. So people should go to my holistichilda.com website and then look into the other things I offer there.
If people wanted to start catching the sunrise after they listen to this episode, what time do they need to be out for the sunrise? Do they need to catch it before it's coming up, as it's coming up, or once it's already up?
Great question. And I just want to say for the person's like, never. I was in your shoes. I was like a certified night owl. If I could have gotten a certificate on my wall, I would have had it up. I was just like, this is my way. This is my heritage. My father's from Cuba. We always eat dinner at 10 p.m. and stay up till 2. I thought I was set until I tried this sunrise challenge for
Yeah.
just 2 weeks. All you have to do is try it for 2 weeks. And the best time is to get up and outside within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise. So right now where I live, sunrise is like at 7:30. We haven't done the time change yet. So I try to get outside between 7:30 and 8, and all you need to do is spend 15 minutes out there. I'm telling you, this has been life-changing for me. And just do 15 minutes. It's better if you move because then you're not cold if it's winter where you're at. So yeah, stack your hacks, move a little bit, get that morning sunlight, say some prayers or think of some positive things to get your day set off right, and watch what happens. And if you've got little ones, if you're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm just always dragging out of bed, they will follow your lead. I always say more is caught than taught. If you're like, mommy's going outside, they're not going to stay inside unless you've got the TV on for them. And I would be like, come on, let's all go out back for 10 minutes. Make it a game, make it whatever you want it to be. But watch what happens to your family and to your own health.
Thank you so much. You are such a wealth of true wisdom. And I'm so grateful to know you. And I so just enjoy and appreciate all the work that you do. And it comes off that you're doing it from passion and true interest. And I just appreciate it. Keep it up. And I have one last question for you that the listener may be curious about is I'm always fascinated with all the wonderful farms now where we can source our turkeys for Thanksgiving. And because you have access to so many fantastic farms because you're on the East Coast, I was curious, where do you and your family like to order your turkey from for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, so we have three sources. It's either going to be Whiffle Tree Farm, which is in Woodbridge, Virginia, a wonderful farm run by Jesse Straight, and I know he does everything right. Sally Fallon Morell actually has her own little farm in Brandywine, Maryland. We sometimes get our turkeys from her if they don't get wiped out by coyotes or something now and then, that kind of thing happens. And then the third source is like Farm Match. I could get it from an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania. So I'm not sure yet, but I have to talk to my husband about it because we work together on that stuff.
Perfect. And so hopefully that's some good resources and tools for people listening that want to go more farm to table this holiday season. And I always say it's worth it because when you cook a real high quality turkey versus a cheaper one that you get at a commercial grocery store, it naturally has more flavor and it actually cooks faster and a lot easier. You don't have to doctor it up. You don't have to baste. It's a better quality experience for you, the cook, and it's a better flavor experience for everyone that's sitting at the table.
Yes, and because of the name of your podcast, I just want to say the vibration of these turkeys is better because they're happier. They've been raised, just pecking around outside. They're not in a controlled or concentrated animal feeding operation or, injected with saline solution so they look plumper. It's weird to me how those butterball turkeys all look like the same amount of plumpness. I'm like, something is not right here. So you got the win of the flavor, you're supporting your local economy, the win of the nutrition and the vibration if
Yeah,
you go local.
absolutely. Yeah, and something more local, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Well, Hilda, thank you so much. Until next time, we'll let you go out and collect more information around the world, and then we'll have you back when you have more to share with us.
Thank you, Whitney. It's been a pleasure.